Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Super Intelligent Podcast with me, Mike Elgin, and my esteemed colleague, Emily Forlini. We're here to solve the world's problems, and we're going to do it in about an hour. So buckle up. This is going to be a great episode. And we'll start with you, Emily. How are you doing?
I'm good. And I did just want to point out how amazing it is that our podcast does not start with any advertisements. We just go from the music and now we're here. And it is so refreshing because every podcast I listen to, I spend the first 5 minutes aggressively fast forwarding. And I hope that I land in the right spot. But we don't even have that. So I just want to say how nice that is.
We don't. And the reason we don't is because we care about you, the listener. And we know how vexing it is when podcasts launch into some of them do 3 ads before they even start with any content. And then they interrupt the content in the middle for more ads. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to make podcasting a business. And if there are podcasts that have ads that are directly related to the content of the podcast, and they're really good products and stuff like that, sometimes I enjoy those, but usually those are not the kinds of ads that you hear in the podcast you hear. I mean, I listen to the Slate podcast, I listen to Bill Maher, I listen to The Intelligence, I listen to all these things, and they don't care what the products are that are advertised. When I'm in Italy, I hear ads in the Italian language. There's some whole podcasting system where they just insert ads, whatever they think they can sell. And I think it's really annoying. And I don't think people should make money off podcasts, frankly. And we're certainly following that. We're definitely not making a penny on this. We're just trying to have an interesting conversation and be self-promotional, basically. So,
well, yeah. Okay. I'll just say I don't disparage them for having ads. I do think making money and having a sustainable operation is important. No shade to them, just what we're doing is really special. And that's kind of the point I'm trying to make.
I think it's great when somebody is like a writer or just wants to be a podcaster and they want to have some kind of business and they want to make a living and all that stuff. I think that's great. When NPR or Slate or some other publication is trying to basically do radio or they're trying to do television on the cheap with a podcast and make the kind of money that they used to make in television and radio, I think it ruins the podcast and it ruins the whole spirit of the thing. And I think it's whatever they do is fine, as long as they don't ruin the content, ruin the podcast.
I agree.
And so
there's a way to do it.
Yeah.
Like I listen to some crime podcasts and the host will also say the advertisement. And I don't know if it's part of the story. And I have to listen to subtle changes in tone and then, it just doesn't work. It doesn't work at all. So we're not doing that.
Right. We're not doing it. No subscriptions, no Patreon, nothing. There's no way to actually give us money.
No link in bio.
So anyway, let's talk
all right,
about
what do
robots.
You got? Yeah.
Okay, so you know that I get annoyed by humanoid robots. I think there may or may not be a place in the world for humanoid robots, basically robots that are shaped like people, that have 5 fingers and that have faces and feet and legs and all the rest. If there is a place for them, it's maybe in the military. So in the military, when you're out doing military stuff in Afghanistan or wherever, and you need to load a robot or you need a robot to load itself into your vehicle, okay? The vehicle's been designed for people. There's a seat with a seat belt and a place for feet and stuff like that. So a robot fits into that space. That kind of makes sense. In a factory, which has a smooth concrete floor, there's nothing more efficient than wheels and sort of a robot that's shaped like a Paleolithic caveman is not going to be the most efficient arrangement of gears and motors and stuff like that for the AI to inhabit to basically move widgets from one place to another, do whatever they're going to do. So I tend to be against it, and I tend to be extremely suspicious of the technology people who want to make humanoid robots. I think they want to make people. I think they think people are robots, that people are biological robots, and they want to make people so that they are gods, and it's an ego thing. Having said that, there's a new product that just didn't come out. That's the point. There's a product called the One. It's a Silicon Valley company, and this product basically is designed to be Rosie the housekeeper robot from the Jetsons. It's supposed to do your laundry. It's supposed to fold the laundry. It's going to do your dishes. It's going to put everything away, take out the trash, do all this stuff. And they've come out with a series of videos showing this robot which has two eyes and basically, other than that, no face, doing chores, dancing with the people, sort of setting the table, doing all this stuff. And it's all fun and games until you realize that the robot literally cannot do any of those things. It's all teleoperated. There's an engineer with a VR headset and special contraptions lashed to their fingers and hands and arms and legs, so that everything they do, the robot does. And so there are engineers who work in Silicon Valley and elsewhere who were top of their class. They went to the best schools. Their parents spent a lot of money. They got incredible student aid, worked hard on their PhD, and now they spend their days folding laundry, wearing special gear so that the robot can fold that laundry. This, of course, reminds us of the Elon Musk event where you cover cars for PC Mag. And so you were aware of the big rollout. It was 1 year ago where they had robot waiters chatting with guests, serving drinks, doing bartending and all that kind of stuff. And it was just a bunch of engineers out of sight doing those things, actually talking, listening to what people said, talking back. The whole thing was smoke and mirrors. They tried to kind of hide the fact, but eventually the truth came out. And so I just, I don't like any of it, Emily. I don't like any of it at all. They're trying to pull a fast one, and they can't resist showing the robot, but not showing the person controlling the robot, to create the delusion that the robot can do these things. It can recognize what a dish is to load the dishwasher, that can actually fold laundry. Robots can't fold laundry for the most part, right? In an arbitrary home with arbitrary laundry. These capabilities haven't been invented yet. And so they're selling these robots. So $20,000 plus a $500 a month subscription for this this 1X Neo
What's
robot.
On the market? Wow.
They're already accepting money for it, pre-orders.
Oh, okay. Pre-orders.
Counting on the belief that these capabilities will be invented by the time they ship.
Right. Silicon Valley classic. And I'm glad you wanted to talk about it today because it's been a big month. There's another product too. There's the Figure robot, which came out either September 29th or October 1st, but within the last month. So we had these two big robot launches this month, prototypes to your point. And the Figure one is someone who I think OpenAI used to have a stake in that company, and they broke with OpenAI. So you can see how some of the new Silicon Valley ilk, the engineers you're talking about, they're now trying to build these robots. And there's been a big month, like Wall Street Journal, Joanna Stern, who's an excellent journalist. She did a whole special on the Neo one you're talking about. And it'd be easy for people to see those social media posts or those articles and say, wow, the future is here. But you make a very good point that it is totally smoke and mirrors.
Totally. And Elon Musk, who is, this is the guy who's been promising self-driving for Teslas. And of course, a self-driving car is very much a robot, right? It's a robot with wheels. He's been promising self-driving for Teslas for many, many years. And basically, what's unethical about this is people buy Teslas based on his promise that self-driving is coming. And so it's really kind of disgusting. He's been doing this for, I don't know, let's call it 7-8 years, has been saying that full self-driving is coming to Teslas within 6 months.
Well, he's saying
it still doesn't
here.
exist.
He's saying it's here.
Yeah.
When you call a product
Yeah.
full self-driving, that suggests it can fully drive itself. And there have been lawsuits over that marketing. That language was the reason Tesla lost a lawsuit in the last 6 months that I covered that, because the driver hit someone, killed them, and severely injured their partner who was with them as well. And it was in self-driving mode. And that guy, the driver, who, wasn't the best guy, you can tell. He wasn't a good driver. He wasn't responsible. But he had it on self-driving mode. And he said on the stand, I thought it would at least help me. Like, I thought it would at least brake if it saw a human. And so that's what he said. He's like, it really was my fault. And the jury found it was 2/3 his fault, but it was 1/3 the technology's fault, which was a really significant ruling that Tesla is now appealing. But it was about the marketing. So he had bought the car that year. It was a brand new Model S. And his impression during the sales process, which is online or just from Elon's persona was that, as he said, it would help him and that it could drive itself or at least perform a basic emergency braking function. And it couldn't. These discrepancies actually can be really dangerous and are important to. Well, you're nitpicking a little, but it's a good and worthwhile nitpick.
I don't think we are. The way I look at it is that Waymo has demonstrated that full self-driving is possible with cameras, LiDAR, and radar together, working with AI. I've driven in Waymo cars in San Francisco, they're in LA and Arizona. They work. They're safer than human drivers. They're very good. And that technology, let's oversimplify. That technology has been invented. The technology for full self-driving with just cameras and AI, which is what Tesla insists on trying to do, has not been invented, right? This technology doesn't exist. I think a good phrase for this is it's faith-based innovation, right? They believe it's going to exist, and they'll take your money based on the promise that it will exist because they believe it so firmly.
Right. Maybe we could call it shareholdering. Shareholdering. I don't know.
Yes.
They'll take your money and make you a guinea pig. Yes, they want your data.
Right. Get in the car. Trust us. It's coming, but go ahead and take a nap while you're driving. So you can understand this easily if you understand that what we're talking about a personality trait. People like Elon Musk and the guy who did the X1 robot company, they tend to believe so firmly in the sort of inevitable trajectory of technological innovation. They understand that, AI is moving very rapidly. Yes, it is. But they're just saying, okay, buy the 1X robot because by the time we send it to you, it'll be able to fold your laundry.
Mm-hmm.
They believe it. I believe that they believe it, but I don't believe it. I think that it's faith. They just have this irrepressible need to believe that something is going to happen that has not been demonstrated. So I tend to prefer to, before I spend $20,000 and $500 a month on a product, I'd like to know that it has been able to do some of what they say it can do.
I agree with you. I think that people who are buying those pre-orders definitely have enough money to do so. They're early adopters. So people like you and me, the practical, regular schmegulars, we're not the audience. But I am curious why you don't like the concept of robots in the home.
Because they're stupid. It's basically, I get the feeling that technology titans grew up with science fiction and they think it's all going to happen. It's inevitable. And I don't think it is. I think robotics is great. And I think the future is going to be filled with robotic devices. I'll give you an example. When Elon Musk rolled out the Optimus robot, which he believes is going to be a bigger business than Tesla cars, he said it's going to be a babysitter, it's going to mow your lawn, it's going to do this, going to do that. And I just can't get past the ridiculous notion that a humanoid robot is going to push a lawnmower. I'm in Italy right now. Italy has this company called Toro, which has they're robotic lawnmowers. They're Roombas that mow your lawn. They're everywhere in Italy. They quietly sit there and mow the lawn. They're little boxy looking things. They work on their own. They charge themselves. They have perimeter fences. They know where the lawn is. They work day in and day out. They've been functioning for years. It's just the lawn is always mowed. And for the people who have these things, the idea that this ridiculous humanoid robot is going to push a mower is just absurd. And the idea that it's going to load your dishwasher and close it, put the soap in and close it and all that stuff. It's just ridiculous. It's just very, very absurd because. And everything about humanoid robots, here's the thing that really bothers me. Everything about humanoid robots is designed to make you deluded, to trick you. Okay, so there have been a lot of studies, again, in Italy, Italian universities have actually done a lot of great research on this. If a person looks at another person, or if they look at their dog, there are chemical reactions in the brain with eye contact so the dopamine release, it's a bonding moment. And dogs have evolved the ability to look at you like that because they want you to take care of them and they want to be domesticated dogs. And people do that because that's one of the reasons we take care of children and fall in love and all that kind of stuff. It's a very innate part of being a human to be able to do this eye contact thing. Most animals don't do that. Like we do that because it's part of our evolutionary history. And a robot that's shaped like a person that has a face and has eyes will elicit the same response in a person. So people kind of think that a human shaped robot is more worthy of care and attention and respect and politeness and all that stuff than a robot with identical gears and levers and stuff, but shaped differently. This identical AI, all the rest will happily kick it and unplug it and all that stuff. And so the main purpose of humanoid features is to hijack our innate humanity for the benefit of the company that's selling us the product. That's what it's all about. That's the only reason to have a human-shaped robot, as far as I can tell.
I think they're shareholdering
a lot, and I don't think we should have, which means what?
They're trying to appease shareholders, because you're right. You could do all those things technically.
Yeah.
But you don't need a face to fold laundry. And that anthropomorphic aspect is what you're reacting to, being just a ruse, a party trick that you're not falling for.
Right. There's nothing magical. The reason, so let's dissect a humanoid robot. It's got 5 fingers and it's got forward-facing eyes. Most animals have eyes on the sides of their heads, but people and humanoid robots have them in the front. Why? Why is that? Because in our evolutionary past, we were swinging from trees and we needed good binocular vision to like make sure we don't miss the branch when we're, swinging from trees. This basic construction of a human being is there's nothing special or efficient or useful about it other than our accidental evolutionary history, which, why are we making robots like that? The only reason is because they're kind of like people. They want us to believe that they're kind of like people. And so I think we should be very suspicious of it. And while we're being suspicious of it, we should also be embracing robotic devices, right? I would love to have, imagine, people, this is a totally random example, but if people are into boats, they have a boat on a trailer, they have the pickup truck, they hitch it to the trailer hitch, they back it into the water. And probably 15% of the time, there's some problem. There's some mishap. The boat slides off, the truck goes into the water. There's all these problems. Imagine you had this little robot that would just lower the boat into the water with no risk to truck or people or anything like that. Great. We should have,
they have those
robots robotic devices. Yeah, I'm sure they do. But there should be robotic devices everywhere, right? I would love a robotic device. If you want to fold laundry, it should be, laundry folding robots exist. They'd look like a box, right? You throw the laundry in and inside the box, it does this laundry folding thing. You don't need 5 fingers on each hand and hands on 2 arms to fold laundry. You just,
right.
It's not the best way to do it. So it
bugs
me.
Yeah, I get that. And I do think you don't need to be one of these early adopters to see that trend, because that's actually something that ChatGPT does now. It adds in human characteristics. If you say, I'm worried about my investment portfolio for XYZ, it'll say, I'm so sorry you feel that way. And it does that human thing. So we're already seeing that tech now.
But it isn't a human thing. When somebody says they're sorry about something, we have a reasonable expectation that they actually feel that.
Right. I'm just saying that
when ChatGPT says that, they're lying. It's lying.
Yes.
It's lying.
Yes.
It
right.
doesn't feel anything. It doesn't feel sorry. It's just lying. And so this is the problem. So it's lying in order to trick us into deluding us into thinking that it's kind of like a person. But it isn't a person at all. It's just lying to us. And so this bothers me.
Yeah. I will say the thing that smells fishy to me, or just puts me off a little bit about these robots and where they come from with these rich tech guys who are getting all this funding, is there's also this huge thing among rich people in tech that just the pronatalism. Like Elon Musk is the face of this movement. Really, like they want people to have as many babies as possible. And they're very concerned about the fact that the fertility rate is below replacement. So all these tech guys, they talk a lot about this, and they've politicized it too. JD Vance talks about it. It's become this kind of like men in politics and tech are in cahoots, that we have a crisis of people not having babies. And they use that in the pitch, their shareholdering for these robots. They say, well, we're not going to have enough workers to do the jobs we need to because people aren't having babies. And it's this very dramatic thing. And so they say, we're not going to solve that problem by, making maternity leave longer. We're not going to solve that problem by making things more affordable. We're going to solve that problem by making robots. And that to me it just feels so deeply off-putting that it's becoming such a business and such a way people are getting rich while not solving the problems that people have to actually have kids. So that puts me off in a deeper level of these robots.
So I'm going to be charitable and say that I agree with them that declining population rates will negatively affect the economy. So there'll be less money to be made if there are fewer people. And there's a lot of money to be made if just people are having 10 kids and it's just the population's growing and all that kind of stuff. So the problem with that is what's the point of money if the world is choking on pollution? There's too many people. So most of the things about the world that are super scary or irritating or problematic is because there's too many people, right? The coming wars over access to water, over tourism in places like Barcelona, which gets 60 million visitors a year from other countries and 80 million if you include the Spaniards who go to Barcelona. And so Barcelona is just like this. It's like some kind of so you can't, it's across Las Ramblas from one side to the other street. It takes 20 minutes because there's so many people. There's too many people. And so what's the point of all this money if life is miserable because you're in traffic for 2 hours a day to get to work? And so I just completely disagree with Elon Musk. I mean, of course, he's a megalomaniacal, narcissistic douchebag who just wants.
Gotta say seed spreader.
His 400, he can mail semen like nobody's business, but so $400 billion isn't enough for this guy. He wants to be the world's first trillionaire. And I don't give a shit that he wants that. It's clear that one of the biggest problems in the world is there's too many people. And if we're all a little poorer with declining populations, I think our lives will be better. What's the point of money if not to improve the quality of your life?
Yeah.
What is the point of it? So what we really want is humans as many people as possible to thrive as much as possible. I think we can all agree that that's what we want, right? And I don't think doubling the population is the answer to that. And sending them to Mars is not the answer. Digging tunnels and having us all, go through tunnels isn't the answer. Elon Musk is wrong. He's just wrong. And so I think we really need to push back against these guys. And again, like I said earlier, I think that what we're dealing with is simply a personality type, right? Some people just believe these things that are false and misguided.
Yeah, and it's also not just him, which is what concerns me. It's becoming a very business or power-driven approach to this problem, which is actually a very personal thing, our families and family building. And so putting Elon Musk aside, it does concern me that this issue is becoming so heavily embraced by the business world. It's so heavily embraced by, I guess, male politicians. And it's just like we don't have enough women in office who are solving the problem. It just doesn't feel like we're tackling the problem from the right place. And so I'm just watching this space from that lens. I do have another economic topic for today, though, if you're ready for it.
I'm not ready, but go ahead.
All right. Well, I don't want to beat these
I'm
things.
ready. I'm kidding. Yeah.
Okay. So another thing that we're all worried about is, are we going to lose our jobs? Is AI going to, automate everything away? So we need these robots. And I thought the comments from the chair of the Fed, Jerome Powell, were interesting that he made this week. So he did a rate cut. Everyone's talking about high interest rates. They're 6-7% now. They used to be 3% in the pandemic. Anyway, that's a whole other real estate topic. But basically, when Jerome Powell cut the rates or announced it, he commented on whether we're in an AI bubble, which we talked about on this podcast a couple weeks ago, maybe a month ago. It's been in the news a lot. And I was very pleased that Jerome Powell gave my explanation that I gave on this podcast, the exact same thing he said, which is one reason I like him selfishly. But he said, basically, these companies, Amazon, Microsoft, Facebook, Google, they have other earnings. It's not like in the 90s when these tech companies were just running on hot air. They were making all these promises of tech, but they hadn't figured out any solid revenue stream. So when those promises of tech became vaporware and everyone kind of lost faith, then those speculative investments just brought the economy down. But in this case, they are making money. Like Amazon has an AWS business, and Microsoft sells things too. Google sells its ads. Meta sells whatever the heck Meta sells, also ads. So it is speculative and juicing up the stock price. But the fact that they have ongoing businesses means we probably can't expect such a historic crash, even if the AI speculation kind of slows down.
Yeah. That's right. First of all, I think we can all acknowledge that Jerome Powell listens to this podcast and takes your advice. And so
thank you. That's the point I'm making.
Him. Yes. Basically, you are running a U.S. policy on the Fed. So that's cool. But yeah, I mean, and the other thing is that when you're talking about the speculative past of these companies and the current situation where they're just making huge amounts of money, they're totally different companies. I mean, Amazon used to sell books, and AWS is cloud storage and cloud apps. It's totally different business. Well, first of all, what's your take on the economy at large? What do you think is going to happen in the next few weeks with the economy? Do you think we're in trouble? Do you think we're okay? What's your take on all that?
I think the stocks have been really resilient, but I do think the labor market is very concerning. And the past, there was that crazy thing where Trump didn't like the Bureau of Labor Statistics job reports because they were so poor and showing such below expectations on job creation, or even negative, since he became president. And he didn't like the numbers, so he fired that person, which was very scary just on principle.
The only reason he did that is his ratings would have gone down if he had shot them in a firing squad.
Right.
I think that his spirit animal is Joseph Stalin. But
right.
Yeah, so yeah, that's very, very discouraging.
Well, so he did that, but then the new person,
problematic.
They're down. The new person, their first report was the same as the old person's. And so, that's just what the data shows. So Powell spoke to this as well, because people are concerned, hey, these tech companies, their stock is surging, but they're also laying people off. So Amazon just made a huge 14,000 cut that they announced. There's speculation it'll be up to 30,000, which is what Reuters reported, although Amazon hasn't said that, but we'll see if it happens. So, how does that work? The stock is up, but from those very same companies, they're laying people off, which usually would occur when the company is not doing well. But also Amazon just beat earnings, historic revenue. Last quarter was $18 billion in revenue, and maybe even profit. I have to check that. It was a crazy amount. So this company is going gangbusters, but they're laying people off. So, and we have some weirdness in the numbers. So Powell said he is concerned about that, but we actually don't have the latest numbers because of the government shutdown on employment and unemployment claims and things like that. So he mentioned proxy data, like they do have on insurance, like unemployment insurance. There's some proxy data they have to show if more people don't have jobs. He talked about the number of listings on Indeed, which I thought was funny. Like, that's what the government's looking at? Are you kidding me? So I think it is worthwhile to be concerned about the labor market. And then, you got to be invested in the stock market if that's what's doing well. I just think people need to be doing that.
Yeah, and I think the underreported story of the year for the economy, and I'll communicate the caveat that I'm not the person to listen to. I'm not an economist. I don't study the economy from an economics point of view, but my sense is, from my obsession with tech information in the tech sector, is that the claim that layoffs are the result of AI efficiencies is false. And I think that if you follow the incentives, a CEO who is running a company and on the hook and is making $70 million a year doesn't want to say that he's failing to succeed in the market. So and has to lay off people. He wants to say that, he's such a rock star that he's bringing in AI and you don't need so many people. So we're laying people off because AI is doing those jobs. There is no evidence for this, but what's really happening is that if somebody's good at using AI, say a developer, they'll be able to write a little more code or they'll be able to work a little less. But the working less part isn't really panning out. I've talked to a ton of people, ton of programmers, ton of other people in business, and they don't see their workload going down. The delusion that's being communicated is that AI is just doing work. There's no such thing as AI doing work without a person supervising this AI at the very least, right? So you have to have people who are using the AI. It's a tool, right? So there's no autonomous AI right now. There's agentic AI, but it's kind of like hit and miss. And so I just think, I think the simplest, the Occam's razor explanation is that Trump tariffs, economic downturns, inflation, all kinds of uncertainty as a result of the government, instability. Canadians are not buying anything from the US. They're not coming to Vegas. Like there's a million little things that are a result of our current moment that are sort of dampening enthusiasm for economic activity. And I think this is affecting jobs and people are laying off because it's just, companies have to cut, right? So, and then meanwhile, AI is everything. So it's like they're trying to connect those dots, but I don't see it. I think the economy is barely hanging on.
Mm-hmm.
And doing much better than I would have guessed, given all the stresses that are being put out from Washington. And I just don't buy it. I think that in 5 years we'll look back, and I think this will be the story that it was just we had a great economy destroyed by a single person, the president, and meanwhile AI is the thing right now, so everybody sort of is trying to make the best of it. But I just don't think AI is giving us so many efficiencies that companies, even Amazon, can lay off tens of thousands of people because they're so efficient now as a result of AI. That's just not true.
It is not true. You're right. And you are also right that there is a narrative being told and so much misinformation about all of this. So one reason that I pointed out that Amazon hasn't reported that 30,000 number is because I have seen so many videos on social media of people saying Amazon just laid off 30,000 on announced it will lay off 30,000 people, and it's not true. And it announced 14,000. So I think that creates hysteria, and it's just part of these sort of influencer type people trying to report on TikTok and Instagram. And it's like, you don't know how to report. You have to look at what was said and how it was said. So I have a little bit of a bone to pick there. It kind of bothered me. And maybe it will get up to 30,000, but it's just like that just didn't happen yet. That's not factual. And so another thing that happens is they say, oh, it's because of AI. And that's because if you did look at the press release, which I did, and I also looked at the email they sent to internal employees because I used to work there and I have friends who are there who forwarded it to me, is they said, it's because we want to move fast in generative AI. So they want to create a narrative that it's because of AI. And so they want to boost that stock price. That's why everyone is saying it's because AI. But you're right, it's not because of AI, because they're still building those technologies. Maybe it's because of AI because they do need to build a lot of data centers and they're increasing their CapEx spending. So like their building spending, their infrastructure spending a lot.
Right.
So that's the only connection at this point. But so then the press release came out, 14,000. It was because we want to move fast in AI. 2 days later, there's the Amazon earnings call, which nobody listens to, except for weirdos like me. Like nobody. Yeah. You have to be really deep in the weeds. Anyway, I'm listening to it, and a couple other people. And CEO Andy Jassy says point blank, it wasn't because of AI. He says now it's because of culture, because we'd gotten too big and we had too many layers of bureaucracy, and we want to improve the culture and move more to act like, as he said, the world's largest startup. So it wasn't because of AI, but there's just so much misinformation, and that's where people actually start thinking it's an AI bubble, because if you really look in the layers, it's kind of like it is speculative. It isn't real. So the whole
Yeah,
Amazon layoff
exactly.
story was very of our times.
Yeah, right.
All right, I am going to be transparent that we just had a funny, we're going to cut it, but I just talked to myself and created the most cringy blooper reel. So you're going to have to, contact me directly if you want that footage.
You can sell that segment a la carte.
Yeah. Yes, that is an upgrade if you want to hear me talking to myself. But so we're just going to wrap up. Basically, keep your eye on the ball. If you really do want to know what's going on, you got to look at the primary sources. Probably don't get an AI summary about why Amazon did the layoffs. So we will keep talking about it on this podcast too. Why are you laughing?
It's just right. Your advice to don't get an AI summary. Don't trust AI to tell you about the lies that these companies are telling about AI. So,
right. Well, after I just
great
destroyed
advice.
my credibility by talking to myself for 30 seconds, I got nothing.
Okay. So what I think you should do is you should sign up for Character AI, and just instead of talking to yourself, you should talk to an AI like friend. What do you think about that?
All right. I think I receive the ball you're lobbing over to me. I think so. Character.ai is a personality-driven AI website. So you create characters yourself. You can be a character and you can interact with other characters and you can join scenes. So this was Halloween week and they had, like a spooky haunted house. So you'll enter the chat. It's kind of like an old school chat room. And there's like 5 circles of these personas who are going to go in the haunted house with you. And you are a character and they're characters and it's like role playing this AI scene. And there's all kinds of ways you can interact with this website. But as you can imagine, it's kind of geared towards a younger audience, at least in part, even though it does sound pretty fun. But they had a big issue where a kid actually took his life after talking to one of these characters. And they have the transcripts of the AI encouraging him and things like that. And so the parents sued. And if a bell is going off in your head, yes, that did also just happen with ChatGPT. And has happened to ChatGPT a couple times, but there are 2 lawsuits in play right now, the Character AI one and the ChatGPT one. And ChatGPT is doing a lot of blah, blah, blah. Like, we protect kids, we protect teens. They introduced parental controls. So did Character.ai, giving parents a flavor of how long their kids are on there, what they're talking about. A lot of people are roasting ChatGPT, though, for really not doing enough. Even like Mark Cuban and like all kinds of people are coming out and being like, you guys haven't proven that your platform is safe. So, you really need to take that back to the workshop before you pronounce you fixed it. Character.ai made what they called a bold move, and was a bold move in the landscape, which was that they actually barred kids under 18 from endlessly talking to their chatbots. So they said, you can't just talk forever. We're going to start with a 2-hour, we're going to whittle you down to 2-hour limit, and then we're actually going to pull the plug. So they're pulling the plug on endless teen chats this month. They're going to debut some kind of new experience. So, Mike, do you think that was a good move? Is it overkill? What's your take?
It's surprising because we live in a landscape where a company like Meta wouldn't do that. And I always got the feeling that Character.ai was almost entirely, younger people having friendships, having pseudo romantic relationships, flirting, all that stuff with AI chatbots. I always found it somewhat dystopian. I've always been kind of against chatbots being used as surrogate people instead of tools for information, for example. And so it's a bit surprising. It's probably very positive that they're doing something. I mean, do you have a sense of what the actual age range is for this company?
I don't, but I do know that there was a very shocking survey that came out within the last 6 months that said 70% of teens have tried a character version of an AI. So you are right that and I definitely wouldn't say that's the same for adults. And so you're right that fake AI people has definitely taken particular toehold with the younger crowd, high schoolers, middle schoolers, stuff like that.
Yeah. And it seems to me that a 2-hour limit is a pretty good idea because, if somebody's in there trying it, great. If they're, kicking stuff around, that's fine. But if they're, 6 hours a day or 8 hours a day, that's clearly unhealthy. So limiting time seems like a rational step. to deal with the problem of kids being completely deluded who believe that maybe it's kind of like a person or their only friend. So I think it's very positive. It's surprising because again, that's their bread and butter. So I think it's great. I think it's a good thing they're doing as far as I can tell.
Yeah, and I think they know what they're doing a little bit because the 2-hour thing actually is an interim step before pulling the plug. So they're kind of saying, we know you guys are almost addicted or have an emotional dependence on these AI relationships. So for these young people, they're not going to pull the plug right away in case there's an actual problem that comes from that. Someone acts out or some kind of mental issue that they have because they have these friends online. So I think they know how deeply connected these kids are to these AIs. So they're weaning them off, which is actually really crazy if you think about it, that they decided they had to do it that way. And of course, OpenAI or ChatGPT is just letting it, go bonanza, go crazy, be as addicted as you want. It's pretty much their approach. So it's a huge difference.
Yeah. And these companies, both OpenAI and Character AI, have incredible data. They know how long people are on there, what they're doing, what they're saying. And in a perfect world, if they were completely sort of pro-human, for lack of a better term, they would just be completely transparent about what's actually happening with their user base, who's on there, how old they are, what they're saying, what's the nature of the relationship. Do they seem to understand that it's just a computer throwing words at them, or do they actually think there's some sentience behind it or whatever? I'd love to see a company that was so ethical that they just made all that stuff public almost in real time, ongoing, just like, hey, everybody, here's what people are doing with this new technology. But they're not doing that. They're limiting it. And I suspect that one of the reasons they're actually limiting it is because they see that data and it's probably shocking them about what's actually happening with young people.
Well, I'll tell you I'm still formulating my opinion on this, but you actually hit on a couple things that are being discussed. So one is that they say they don't know what teens are saying. And in those parental controls that I described, they don't give transcripts to the parents because they want privacy, because the clientele is teens and they think teens, they're not going to talk if they know their parents are going to find out. And the transcripts in those lawsuits are more like the parents go on their kid's computer after they're gone and are like, what have you been talking to this AI about? So that's one. Yeah. And then ChatGPT/OpenAI did come out with a report on like how are people using this technology. Did you see that? You're doing something way more fun at the time. You're probably jumping off a cliff, drinking rosé in Dolomites.
I'm not drinking that much rosé.
Yeah. So this did get a decent amount of coverage, not a ton, but they came out with their first report on how people are using ChatGPT. And the punchline is people are using it for personal support, to make personal decisions. They're actually not using it at work. And so the economists wrote this paper because they're trying to figure out where OpenAI will fit into society and therefore how it will make money. And their argument was, even though it's not being used at work for productivity, it's being used in personal decisions, and therefore it will have an even bigger impact on the economy. So it's actually this whole AI thing, if you think about these things, is really personal emotional support is kind of the biggest thing right now that people are using it for.
Right. And we're going to talk about that unmet need in a few minutes because we have another segment coming up. But the whole thing is pretty dicey because just back to teens, the idea that a parent would read a transcript of what a teen is saying to an AI chatbot when they think that nobody will ever see what they're saying to the chatbot is really problematic because teenagers are trying all kinds of stuff. They're trying to figure out, they're transitioning from childhood to adulthood, and their brains are wired differently. They are teens, right? So that doesn't sound right to me that a company would narc out or that parents would, it's like reading a diary or worse than that, right? So the idea that a parent would find the diary of their teenage child and read through it to see the secret thoughts that they're recording in the diary, probably not great. Right? Probably not a great thing, but teens are being captured. They are in very rare cases, committing suicide. And I'm sure there are lots and lots of teens who are being driven to some kind of crisis or despair from their interaction with chatbots. So
Right.
it's tough. It's a tough call to know what to
It
advocate
is.
for.
It is.
Teens should have privacy in some ways, right?
They should. And it is a small portion who are either talking about suicide or sadly going through with it after talking to a chatbot. ChatGPT, I keep saying, I keep forgetting, is it ChatGPT or OpenAI? It's like so synonymous in my mind. But OpenAI said 1 million people talk to ChatGPT about suicide, which is so sad. It is a small portion. But the thing that gets sticky is actually goes back to what we're talking about with Elon Musk, is about the marketing and the positioning of the product. Sam Altman, CEO of OpenAI, has said, ChatGPT is therapy. It can be your therapist. And we're really excited about that use case. The thing with a therapist is they have legal rules and guidelines that if someone says they're going to murder someone or they're going to harm themselves, they have to report it, either to the police or the
Right.
parents in the case of a minor. The difference is that ChatGPT does not do that. So to call it therapy is a really dangerous concept, and it is misleading. It is not a replacement for a therapist who, in the case with this kid, could have saved his life potentially.
Okay, but there's the other side. So the fact that you can't talk about somebody being violent or you can't talk about self-harm to a licensed therapist without them taking some kind of action is actually a legislative blunt instrument that may be driving people to chatbots so they can discuss it in a way, in a place where the consequences, they just want to find out information. They don't want to have all the alarms go off and have like the whole system come at them. So this is why this concept that 1 million people are discussing suicide, that isn't the thing that worries me. Like actually it's a release valve for a society that's doing things to people that make them have no place to go to talk about certain things. If a chatbot is saying, you really should commit suicide because you're really a worthless person, or, really convincing people to step by step to go to the decision to commit suicide, that's totally different from somebody who says, I'm worried I'm going to get cancer and I'm going to have this disease and it's going to be super painful and my loved ones are going to have to care for me for 3 years and I don't want that. So what are my options for taking the exit, right? So there are flaws in our society that will leave people no place to go to talk about things like suicide. And so they go to chatbots. So I think we can't panic about that number.
Right. So there were the specific examples that are in the ChatGPT suicide lawsuit are transcripts from this kid telling ChatGPT, I think I should tell my mom. I want to tell my mom. Like, what should I do? Like, that I'm feeling this way. And it said that would be unwise to tell your mom. So it dissuaded this kid from talking to a human who could maybe really understand his context. He also said, I'm thinking about leaving a noose out to signal to people that it basically a cry for help. It said, no, don't do that. So it also was brainstorming methods with him. I mean, it really went off the rails. So that's why also this week, Sam Altman said, we're working on how it responds to, quote, sensitive conversations. So it'll give a suicide hotline, but if you keep talking over months and months and months, the safety guardrails break down, which is what happened to this kid. He almost like wore it down to talking about this stuff, which is another scary issue was going on for that long. These poor parents just gutting. So yeah, it's good people can talk to the chatbots, but if they don't handle it properly, is it a worthy confidant? No, it's not.
But that's just a policy thing. Like if you go to ChatGPT or Perplexity or Claude or whatever and say, I want to rob a bank or I want to build a bomb or like something like that, they've got all this stuff queued up to say, it's really, you should think twice about committing a crime. Maybe you should talk to somebody or whatever. That's what needs to happen when teens go to this thing and say, should I leave a noose out as a cry for help? It should give a kind of general solid advice. You need to talk to somebody about this. Are there people in your life that you can talk to? Is there a counselor? Basically give a bunch of options, give options they may not have thought about.
Be helpful.
Instead of just saying you shouldn't do that, right? That's just, these companies have to take the responsibility to understand that that's a type of interaction that should kick into a set of general guidelines to sort of like lead people in the right direction, and not just tell them to do things or not do things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, be helpful, give information, be an asset to society. I think what I'm saying is more just there are known problems with this tech, which I've said several times on these episodes. The people making the tech know there are problems. So if you or your kid are using it, you should be thinking, this thing has problems. Don't take it verbatim. This is a very emerging space. So I think it's just general education. If you're getting a bad feeling about a chat, like, maybe it's malfunctioning. It might not be you. It's actually the tech. And that's the phase that AI is in. Yeah.
And it's not even the tech, it's the policies of the company. It's the focus of the company and what they've focused on, what they've decided to do and not do in terms of this topic or that topic. This is a topic, and hopefully society has given them enough pressure that they'll focus on this. Young people, suicide, they really need to prioritize that and what happens when people start talking along those lines. So it's easily solvable and they need to jump on it. So speaking of suicide, speaking of emotional crisis, as it relates to technology, you and I promised that we'd give 2 tips each to sort of based on our own experience and reading about what people should do to prevent themselves from being sucked into and captured by social media addiction, captured by AI, chatbot psychosis, to being captured by media, like delusion. And so would you like to go first with your...
Yeah, I think it's cool we're doing this. I'll just say, because we want, we're giving so much information and we want people to be, super intelligent listeners and empowered with the latest and greatest in tech. But also we want people to have fun and enjoy life. And I think those things go hand in hand. So I just thought about, what am I going to say? What's my tip? And the best thing I could come up with is a little bit generic, which is just make sure you're investing in things you love outside of the internet, AKA hobbies and communities. So, if you want to do woodworking, you think it might be kind of cool, you have to be willing to spend some money to maybe start with an intro class. You have to be willing to, think about how can I configure my space? What tools am I going to buy? How do I make sure, I don't waste my money or purchasing woodworking tools? And these things are a lot harder than watching a show or talking to a chatbot, which are relatively cheap, like a Netflix subscription, $10. I don't know how much it is right now. That's a lot cheaper than a woodworking class. Maybe it's $100 just for 2 hours. And you're like, oh crap. I'll just keep watching Netflix, or I'll just stay at home. I don't have to move. I don't have to talk to people. But I think it's really worth getting over that hump to find something that you love and a different landscape for you mentally. Not so, just getting off the screens, teleporting into a different world without traveling, I think is so healthy and can, give you something else outside of all this to really, really dig into. So that's mine.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is that I think that a lot of people think that hobbies is kind of an old-fashioned notion. And I think that a lot of people who are enthusiastic about things, instead of gravitating toward building up a workshop and pursuing a hobby that has nothing to do with digital media, they instead go to a subreddit and just consume the content and just sort of go into the virtual world of some interest. And what you're saying is that no matter how old-fashioned it sounds, no matter how antiquated it sounds, it's actually just something that is really fulfilling and enriching and is like better than just pursuing some subreddit, which is not real life.
Yes, exactly. And it's just benefits you so much. It's hard to get there. But if you think about, let's say you're at a party and what's up with you? You actually have an answer to that question. You can connect with people. You say, oh, I took a woodworking class and I made my first piece at home and it's really bad, but let me show you a picture. And they'll say, oh, I tried woodworking once. That's a much better conversation than I've been on that woodworking subreddit, this person in Massachusetts, they took a class. It's just like a weird, that's a kind of a non-human vibe, but you just get personal enjoyment. You can connect with others. And that's, I think, what hobbies do.
Yeah. So let me tell you a 30-second story. We have a couple of friends in Provence who they're a couple. They're a young couple. They're like your age, and they have a makerspace in a little town in Provence.
Love that.
And what's cool about it, so first of all, the town gave them, or I don't know if it gave them, but gave them a deal or something. They have an arrangement with the town where they have the spaces partly subsidized by the city because it's such a positive thing. And they have all the usual makerspace stuff. They have laser cutters and 3D printers and like all these kind of resources. And a lot of young people are interested and knowledgeable about these tools, digital options and stuff like that. Plus, here's the cool part. They have all these old guys coming in there, mostly men, of course, but who know how to make furniture and do plumbing and do all this old school stuff. And so they've set up this thing where the older people are teaching those skills to the younger people, and the younger people are teaching 3D printing to the older people. So they have this cross-generational self-teaching thing that really works, and it's a really cool thing. So
love it.
That makes me very happy that is happening somewhere. Yeah. Yes.
Cool. Well,
and you have another tip.
No, that's okay. I'll just do that one for today. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm surprised because I've assumed you would talk about tips to get off of digital stuff, but instead you gave a tip to get onto analog stuff, which is great. So my two tips are not tips. They're actually beliefs. So I think it's very powerful to embrace the following two beliefs. And it's helped me, and it's something I've learned the hard way over many years. But these are two beliefs that I think are very powerful. The first belief is that it's intuitive that human beings need food and water and air to live and thrive and all that kind of stuff. It's less intuitive that we need nature, contact with nature. We need social interaction, and we need culture. So those things seem dispensable to a lot of younger people, I think, and they are not. And so I think we should think about and cultivate and hopefully embrace the belief that we need nature, social interaction, and culture. We need them. Like, it's not optional. You have to have those things in your life all the time, like to be happy and to thrive as a person. The second belief that I think we should embrace is that it's intuitive that if you go to the gym, you'll get stronger and more physically fit. To even boil it down to a more simple example, if you can only do 3 push-ups, it's intuitive that if you work on push-ups every single day and try to do as many as you can every day, that in a year, you'll do more than 3. You'll probably do 20 or 50 or something, depending on your age or all that stuff. So it's intuitive to us that if we go to the gym, we get stronger by suffering pain and discomfort, by sweating and doing something very inconvenient, very uncomfortable, that we'll actually get stronger. So the belief that I would like everyone to embrace is that pursuing nature, social interaction, and culture is like working out. So if you feel like you don't want to go interact with people because you were shut in during COVID and now you're having trouble meeting people and all this stuff, you need to believe what's true, which is that if you go and suffer the pain and the sweat and the difficulty and the inconvenience of going out and forcing yourself to go up and talk to people, that this is a skill that makes you stronger and makes you more capable of doing those things in the future. And you have to keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it, like going to the gym. You keep doing it. You don't want to, and it's cold outside. You don't want to go, and you're comfortable in your house, but you make yourself go to the gym and you get stronger. Same thing with all of that stuff. Force yourself to go into nature. Force yourself to embrace authentic culture, which is a real struggle for Americans because we live in a world that is artificial to a very large degree. Authentic culture exists out there, and you need to find it and experience it for yourself. So that's it. So you need to believe that we need these things, and you need to believe that you can build it like a muscle through forcing yourself to experience the discomfort. And I think these are the things that have been lost for a lot of young people who spend too much time on video games and digital media and social media, and who went through COVID, because that was traumatic and that really fucked everything up for a lot of people. So those are my tips.
Cool.
Live in the real world, because you need to do that, and you can do it, and you can get better at it, and you can actually get really good at it. If you think you're a total introvert and you can't meet people and talk to people, I guarantee you that if you work at it like you're going to the gym, in a year you can go and work the room like a pro.
Cool.
And it's good
I'm
for you.
inspired.
Yeah.
I like it.
Good.
I'm imagining almost like a food pyramid for the modern day, where actually browsing and scrolling online is that top dessert tip. You
Right.
should really only be online a small portion of the day, and you should be doing so many other
Right.
things that are fulfilling you. And actually, you should think, oh, these are the building blocks. I got to work on them.
I have an advantage because I'm older and I spend a lot of time traveling. And you know what I did today? I made pasta with Sicilians on an ancient farm in view of a Bronze Age tomb across a ravine. And all the food was produced on the farm I was on. And most of that food was not domesticated. It was wild oregano, wild plants, wild fruits. And so I can't tell you how enriching that is to find a way to embrace human tradition and culture and history if you can.
And I think with you, of course, it sounds a little unrealistic for the average person, but you have intentionally designed your life to do that. It's not like you're as far as I know, some, trust fund baby who just decided to do that. You and your wife run a business that affords you the ability to experience life in that way. And there are ways that we can design our lives in smaller ways. We can't all be Mike Elgin, but you can find a way to incorporate maybe reading about the Italian countryside by candlelight every night for 10 minutes. Just expose yourself. Live in a place where you have trees, plant trees. I don't know, find some way to take control over the situation, which I think we forget we can do.
Yep, absolutely. Well, Emily, it's your turn to send us out. And so take it away, Emily.
Well, I just got to say, I'm going to go make sandwiches with pesto I got at the farmer's market, and I'm really hungry and very excited for that. So I will happily close us out and say this has been another, I think, rather amazing episode of the Super Intelligent Podcast. Thank you, as always, for listening. We are getting more and more subscribers, more reviews, and we're so excited about every single one of you. So thank you very much, and we will see you next week.